What's up, Keller Williams Realty Partners? Johnny Camp coming to you with another educational video about the buyer's point of view. And today we're going to talk about the closing, which is why we're all here. Again, this is the email that I send out to all my buyers when they're under contract, and I'll get started. Your home is to be broom swept and free of debris upon the final walkthrough. So what we do with buyers is we usually take them, I try to take them the day before to the extent that we're able. We want to try to make sure that all the repairs were done correctly. We want to try to verify that probably well before the close date. In fact, when I write an amendment to address concerns for the certain repairs, I say 5 days prior to closing. That way we can verify. That way we're not, because I've been in the spot where we're out the day of closing, we were scurrying to try to get repairs done because they hadn't done it. And unfortunately, some sellers or some sellers' agents are derelict and they don't get the things done that they said they're going to do. Back to the reading. I always like to remind my buyers that the home may not be perfectly clean. Again, it only has to be broom swept and free of debris. It is supposed to be completely vacant and all the stuff is supposed to be out of it, but sometimes that doesn't exactly happen. At the very worst, sometimes, or the very best, sometimes it's just not very clean. It is broom swept and free of debris, but it's not spick and span unless you've asked for that in the contract. Things like wall imperfections and markings and nail holes are normal. So as long as they're not really large, when you took your buyer through the house, chances are they had pictures up and furniture out and all this. You can't have a ton of damage, but just remember that some wall imperfections and things like that are normal. Please be sure and bring your driver's license and another form of ID to the closing. Again, I haven't seen an attorney ask for a second form of ID in a while, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have them bring something like a credit card. One thing's for sure, they do have to bring either a driver's license or a state-issued ID. So again, and I'll read, a second form of ID can be as simple as a credit card, but the first must be a driver's license or a state-issued ID. The closing attorney will reach out soon and ask you to complete a buyer info sheet. So again, back like we're under contract or like we've just gotten under contract, the attorney will send out that buyer info sheet. That needs to be filled out immediately. I don't care if you're closing in a month and a half, the buyer needs to go ahead and fill that out. Back to the reading. Please fill this out for them and return as quickly as possible to avoid delays in closing. If funds are required from you to close on your transaction, and most likely they will, you will need to wire them at least 2 business days prior to closing. You could probably get by with wiring it the morning of, but you don't want to be sitting there at the closing table waiting for hours for a wire to hit. So they need to go in a couple days before, at the very least a morning before, and send those funds in via wire. I don't know if the banks are allowing people to wire remotely now. I'm not sure. But one thing you need to make sure you tell your buyers, and I'll read here, because wire fraud is so rampant, always call the closing attorney beforehand to verify wiring instructions. This is very important because if your email account was hacked and you send the money to a scammer, there is no recourse and no way to get your money back. That money is gone. Now, we have heard horror stories over the past few years about people losing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars because someone got into their account, they emailed them and said, hey, here are the wiring instructions. And it turns out it's in some foreign country or somewhere else where we have no ability to get that back. So your buyer wants to make double and triple sure that they are sending the money to the right place. Although the buyer and seller get to pick the day of closing, the closing appointment times are usually set on the attorney's availability. So you as the buyer's agent want to get with the selling agent immediately if you can. Let's say you're closing on June 1st. And you want to close in the morning, you need to try to get on their calendar as soon as you can, because if you wait toward the end of the closing period, that may be a day that they've almost completely filled up. 4 p.m. is the only thing available, and you're going to have to take that time. Please note that if the home you are purchasing is in an HOA, one of the line items due on your final closing statement will be the HOA initiation or setup fee and your portion of this year's HOA dues. So they're supposed to disclose that in the community association disclosure, but many of these HOAs have initiation fees, and sometimes they're several $100s. Sometimes they're several $1,000s. It depends on the type of amenities the HOA provides and all this. And if, for example, you're closing on August 1st, where you're going to go August, September, October, November, December, that's 5 months of HOA dues they may collect up front from the closing. Please be prepared to make arrangements at work for time off for your closing. You know, if you have an hour window to close, I would probably just take a half a day. I know that's a pain, but sometimes we're sitting at the closing table for a couple hours waiting on funding, and that does happen, or sometimes there's a problem. If you cannot be at your closing, please tell me as soon as possible. We need to let the attorney know as soon as possible if you're going to do, for example, a power of attorney where someone else is signing for you, or you're going to be doing a mail away because you're going to be out of town. Both of those need to be prepared well in advance of the close date, because those things still have to be notarized, and we need to know that right away. If this is the case, you will have to get someone to sign for you at closing. Again, that's what the power of attorney is. The attorney will have to arrange for that power of attorney, and that's typically going to cost you $100 to $150. So we need to know all those things as soon as possible. So you need to prepare your buyer that if they're going to be out of town or if they're going to have someone else sign for them, to let us know as soon as possible. And that's the closing. Thanks for watching, guys.